Hey guys, my next guest has an eye for fashion and she made the little black dress famous on Seinfeld. She's Nicole Miller and she's sitting down with me on Talking with Natasha. Nicole Miller, thank you for joining me.
Oh, it's great to be here.
I want to talk about your jacket first of all, because you've got all the astrological signs.
I know.
What was the idea behind your jacket?
Well, I've always liked these symbols and I thought they were really pretty. And first, I made a handbag with all these symbols on it. And then I thought, it's not giving them enough credit because they're too small. So I made them bigger and then I put them on this jacket. And then, I don't know, I just wanted to make it a little funkier. So I put all these patches on it.
I love it. Wait, what's your sign?
Pisces.
Pisces. Okay, so.
Yeah, not everybody understands these signs. And, at the time I made the jacket, I knew what they all were, but don't quiz me on those because I don't remember which is which right now.
This is also made by you.
Oh, my Evil Eye jacket. I love it. Yeah.
So are you big into Evil Eye and is these signs?
No, I do like all those symbols. I do like, the Hamza and the Evil Eyes and all that. I just like all those symbols.
I think it's so colorful, it's so fun, and it's just also so you. Describe your personal style.
Well, I always say I'm the uptown, downtown girl because, I live downtown. I live in Tribeca, but I'm always hang out at uptown events too. And I have a lot of friends uptown. So I'm always like back and forth. And, it was funny back when I was single, I used to, I always had like, I'd have my date for the downtown events or I'd have my date for the uptown events because they didn't always so I had to find somebody that I could take to both.
I remember the first time that we met in your showroom, I was trying on a dress and I couldn't believe that you were there doing the alterations. Like it was like a surreal moment for me. Like the Nicole Miller was there. Is that how you approach everything? Are you very hands-on?
Well, I'm very hands-on, but I have to say in all those years of doing fashion shows, I did fashion shows for 30 years and I did all the fittings myself. I mean, I didn't sew them, but I pinned every garment myself. And then I would, pass it on to the sewer or the pattern maker because, sometimes it would need to be ripped or if you're fixing something that's with beads, like the dress you had on, you have to hammer off the beads because, if you take one bead out, they all fall apart. So a lot of these things really have to be, very carefully taken care of. So, but I was always hands-on every fashion show, every fitting I was in.
I also noticed that dress I was wearing, it just fit me so well. And I just feel like you've got such a great eye for shape, for a woman's shape.
You looked amazing in it.
Thank you.
I have to say, that's such a tiny dress that hardly anybody else could wear it.
How did you get a great eye for shape?
Well, my mother was French. She was from Paris and everything. So, I always grew up with, her sort of fashion sense and a lot of amazing pictures of her in Paris in these incredible clothes. And I went to school in Paris. I went to an haute couture school. And, I learned very early on that you really have to develop an aesthetic eye. Which is funny today because sometimes the wrong thing looks good instead of the right thing. So your eye does change over time. But so I think I developed my own set of aesthetics and, over time. And I also went to art school. I went to Rhode Island School of Design. So the combination of, I think, my couture background and the art background helped formulate all that.
Were you raised in Fort Worth, Texas, I was reading?
I was born in Fort Worth, Texas,
Okay.
But I actually was raised in Massachusetts. We lived a lot of places, but eventually we ended up in Massachusetts. So most of my schooling was in Massachusetts.
In 1986, you opened up your first boutique on Madison Avenue.
Yes.
And now you've become worldwide. I mean, you've had such an illustrious, long career. It's still going on. What is the secret to your longevity?
Well, I just feel like I'm very open-minded and I just keep going. I mean, I'm not one of these people that has a negative attitude or I say, I can't do it. I feel like I'm always open-minded. I'm open-minded to suggestions. I always have a young staff around me. And, I love what I do. And I think that's part of it. I love going to work every day and I like seeing fabrics and colors and prints and just keeps me energized.
It's pretty amazing when you say open-minded because you've gone from clothes to home decor. and you're doing this incredible wallpaper I was seeing in your showroom. And, you're doing eyewear and bags and shoes. At what point did you decide that you want to expand, and how? What was that process like?
The initial process is very organic because when you have a clothing line, the natural extension would be handbags or shoes. So, when we started having fashion shows, people approached us to license us for shoes and for handbags. So those were my first two licensees. And then as time went on, somebody came along with eyewear, so I ended up with an eyewear licensee. So it was great because then I could accessorize my collections because, initially when you first have a show, you're scrambling for shoes and scrambling for accessories, and then we got a jewelry license. And then, of course, then the perfume license came along, which is everybody's dream to get a perfume license. So one thing after another happened, and, it expanded into menswear. We started doing men's ties. When I had the store on Madison Avenue, we started doing men's ties. So that became a huge business. So then we started getting, calls for people wanted to do men's shirts for us and men's tuxedos, and then they would line them with our fun prints. So one thing led to another, but then eventually the home thing came around, and somebody wanted to license us for furniture. And, the next thing it was like sheets.
That's amazing.
And so, so now we're just, the whole thing, we have, it's a full lifestyle brand, and we have just about every product, and, we have kids wear and all kinds of things.
Is there a certain thing that you gravitate towards more?
Well, the thing that I'm most involved with initially are the prints.
Yeah.
So I get very involved with the prints, and then the prints get fed off to our different licensees. So we do, special prints for the children's wear. We do special prints for QVC, and we do special prints for one of our other licenses, and also for home. So, that's the thing that sort of gets everything rolling is the prints.
How do you get inspiration for the prints?
Well, I always say I travel a lot. So, I was in Thailand, so a lot of inspiration came from my trip to Thailand. I was recently in Bali, so that was a lot of inspiration also. So I think whenever we do a collection, it's always good that it has a story and has a soul and has a beginning, and people love that. So and also it helps me, to talk about it, and then I can talk about my trip and all the beautiful things I saw.
I've noticed that you love to travel. Is there a favorite place that you've been, or a place that you just love to go back to?
Well, there's one place I always like to go back to, St. Bart's, and that's like a vacation. So, and it's it's a beautiful place and has great restaurants and great beaches. So that's always fun, and that's more of a relaxation trip. But, a lot of these other trips are split somewhat between like culture and vacation. And I went to Albania last year, which is a very exciting, fascinating country. I also went to Greece last year. And, this year I have a trip planned to starting in Istanbul and ending up in Cyprus.
Oh, that'll be fun.
So that'll be exciting.
Yeah.
So I know I'm going to come back with some great inspiration from that.
Your prints always make everyone so happy. They're so bright and they're colorful. And I just love them. I think you think so outside of the box.
Well, I like pretty colors. And it's funny because I wear a lot of black clothes.
Great.
And, I never wear beige. I always say I'm not a beige person.
Why is that?
It's just so bland.
Yeah.
It's so bland. I guess beige to me is not a color. I do wear white though. I do have a white shirt on, but I'll wear a white shirt with some other colors.
I feel like New York, everyone wears black. When I look around.
I know. Look at us.
Look at me. I literally was like, Nicole Miller's coming, so I have to wear all black. With
you look
pops
great
of
in
color.
Colors. With your coloration, you look great in colors.
It's there is this famous scene in Seinfeld where Elaine is at the diner
right.
and she's talking to, I think, some guy, Craig or something, and she's talking about, the little black dress, the Nicole Miller. Do you remember that scene?
Well, yeah, of course, because and he's trying to tell her he can get the dress wholesale for her or something, or he's getting her a deal on it or something, but he wants to go out with her, but he's making up this thing, and I guess he really doesn't have any connection.
What was your reaction when you first saw that?
I've still, a lot of times our things end up, on a show, and we kind of know, like the stylist came and took it and whatever. Like I knew how Angelina Jolie ended up with our scarf dress because our stylist gave it to her. But, and then the movie 7, where Brad Pitt wears my ties all the way through the movie, There was a friend of mine in LA's friend stylist put all my ties in the movie. So that I knew how it happened. But the Seinfeld one, I still don't know how that came about. I'm not sure because I'm sure somebody had to put like that thought in their head. So I'm so curious about that myself.
That's so funny. I didn't
But people
realize.
keep sending me that. They still keep airing it and people keep saying,
Yeah.
oh, look what I saw. So that one really had a lot of legs.
The little black dress.
Yes.
I feel like you've perfected that. How have you done that?
Well, I started out like years ago just thinking I could make the perfect little black dress for everybody. And, you know, back then, dresses were much simpler. Like everything is much more elaborate because before, I mean, we couldn't make things in India. We couldn't make things in China. Everything was made in the United States. So a little black dress was a very simple little black dress. So I was always trying to make like the best little black dress I could. And then over the years it evolved because, you know, as time went on, we could make it embroidered, we could make it embellished, we could make it, you know, eyelet, beaded, whatever. So the little black dress became like much more interesting as time went on.
Mm-hmm.
And at one point I just decided, well, I'll make the little black dress in every color.
Yeah.
So that also gave it a new life. So, you know, it's one thing that they always talk about, that the little black dress.
The LBD.
Yes.
We talk about LBD, like just thinking about your closet staples. What is something every woman should have in their closet, like the staples?
Well, I always say, can't go wrong with black pants, especially traveling.
Right.
You know, I always say, you know, you travel, you bring, you know, your basic black t-shirt.
Mm-hmm.
And we have this great t-shirt. It's out of modal rather than cotton, which I think is much more comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
But you have your great favorite black t-shirt, your black pants, a black blazer. And then if you travel, you always bring those things with you, and then you can mix them up with colors and prints. And then you can have like several different outfits.
I think less is more. Don't you think so too? I mean, if you can have like a few things and you can pair them off really well, like you say, you just have that kind of that uniform to begin with, the black pants, the black shirt, and then you can accessorize it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. But I mean, I always think it's good to do a little bit of investment dressing. And so you can, you know, spend a little more and maybe getting like the perfect black jacket. And then you can be, you know, buy some maybe less expensive things to wear underneath it.
What kind of what season is your favorite? Do you like, are you summer? Are you winter? What's your favorite?
Well, I don't really have a favorite, but I like full-on seasons.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's just the interim seasons that bother me because when it's not really quite spring, like today, it's like, it's supposed to be spring, but it's not.
Yeah.
It's like as cold as winter. And then when fall kind of doesn't know what it's doing, when summer has stayed too long or winter hasn't hit yet. So I'm more of like, you know, full-on spring, summer, and full-on winter.
When I look at everyone who you've dressed, I think, who hasn't Nicole Miller dressed? You look at the Beyoncés, Angelina Jolie, you know, talk to me about how you kind of decided who you wanted to work with. And I know a lot of times there were stylists that were involved too, but how did you know who to work with just as your career went on?
Well, it doesn't really work that way because, I mean, you can always have a dream or a fantasy. Mm-hmm. And you can always tell your stylist or your dresser. Like I had a girl, and I had several people in LA, you know, either agencies or individual people dressing celebrities for me. And very often it's like who they have connections with. And so they'll say, oh, we have these people, and who are you interested in? And then they would be, you know, more prone to like trying to dress those people that I prefer. Or they could say, do you mind if we dress this person? And I could say yay or nay. But one year I had this just fantasy that I wanted to dress Angelina Jolie and Joss Stone. And literally it happened without me knowing it.
Wow.
In a way, because I know we had sent these clothes to LA and they had sent them to Angelina for the opening of Mr. and Mrs. Smith, but she hadn't decided what she was going to wear yet. Mm-hmm. And she had several options. So at the last minute, she ended up, apparently, like her stylist told me later, that she pulled that dress out of the box and she goes, this is it. And then that was on the cover of every tabloid. And I actually met her, but not till later. I met her after she won the dress. So I said, oh, you made my dress so famous. She was very nice. And then Joss Stone, I'm watching like some fashion awards, whatever, on TV. And I see Joss Stone walk out on stage and I go, oh, she's so gorgeous. I want to dress her. And I go, and look, she's wearing a dress that looks like one of mine. And I'm like, looking closer and
You're
closer.
like, wait a minute.
And I go, it is my dress. She's on my dress. How'd she get my dress? And her stylist had come up to the showroom and taken the dress from her, but nobody had told me. But she hadn't come to the showroom herself. And then we dressed her many times after that. So she wore a lot of our things.
Is there anyone you want to dress now?
Oh, like, I don't know, probably like Rihanna or Taylor or any of those.
That would be great.
Love them all.
Could you imagine Taylor Swift? That'd be huge. You do like
She's my neighbor. She lives next door to me.
Does she really? Is there like crazy amount of paparazzi out there?
Well, the thing is, they've learned because she bought the building next door and it's a garage. So she drives into the garage with her, shaded windows. And so nobody can see her coming in or out. And they've learned that you never can see her. Yeah.
How is the privacy? Like, do you find that, your name is Nicole Miller. It's iconic to the brand. How do you kind of navigate life? Like, do you separate yourself from the brand in any way?
Not particularly.
Okay.
No, I mean, I don't know. I feel like I'm the same person, whatever.
When you make dinner reservations, are people like, wait?
No, but the weird thing is a lot of people have my name. Mm-hmm. So I think like when I call up and like make a reservation, they always want my phone number.
Okay.
Because, then they'll know who I am. But I mean, I'm sure a lot of people call up and say, I'm Nicole Miller, and they'll have the wrong number. And then they don't get the table.
They don't get the table. You get the table.
Yeah.
What's your advice to young designers who are maybe looking to make a name for themselves?
Well, I think it's really important to be focused and have your own identity. And I find one thing that's really important, because I went to a lot of fashion shows this year, and I think one thing that really stood out is quality. You really have to have really well-made clothes, because I think it's so important. Even if you have like a crazy idea, it really is important that those clothes are made well. And I think that's what made the difference in the shows I saw, that some clothes were super well made and some were not as well made. So I think it's really important, especially if you're having a fashion show, to make sure your clothes look really well made. And, you have to really be an individual, because it's a very crowded room these days, and everybody's doing everything, and everybody's a tireless self-promoter. And you have to like make yourself known on, Instagram, TikTok, and everything else too.
As you got bigger and bigger and expanded into whether it be perfumes or linens and eyewear and bags, how did you maintain that individuality?
Well, I mean, you really have to be on top of, when you have a licensee, you have to be really on top of the approval process. And, obviously sometimes I can't be at every approval process. So I have to have people that work for me that I trust, that, understand the look, and like, that they have to be able to say, no, that's just not Nicole.
Yeah.
You can't go with it.
Exactly. Yeah. What's next for you?
Well, all kinds of things. I mean, obviously I'm traveling more and going to different things, but we have this big fashion show with LIM coming up on April 4th, which is very exciting. And let's see, trips planned, and QVC, my QVC spring line. I'm going to be on May 2nd with my summer line is coming up, and April 11th with my spring line. So that's keeping me very busy also, and that's been fun.
What's kind of been the defining thing for spring fashion? Like, what are the trends that you're starting to see?
Well, I love flowers, and I'm really happy flower. Some years florals aren't a big thing, but they're a big thing again, and they always make me happy, and I think they're so pretty, and I think they're flattering on people. And in the Hamptons, everybody has these parties to go to, and they just look so great in a floral dress.
Colorful, bright, happy. I think people gravitate towards it.
I'm really not a fan of muted colors. And there's certain brands that are out there, and all their colors are this kind of like, they look like dried flowers to me.
Yeah.
And it's not my thing. I like pretty colors.
Not beige.
Not beige.
Not beige. Are there any other colors that you don't like? Anything that's more muted?
Well, I'm not a fan of like things like pale pink and pale aqua.
Okay.
But I mean, I don't mind the bright versions of those.
Yeah.
Like I would wear a fuchsia or a turquoise, but I wouldn't wear the pale aqua or the pale pink. I don't know about you. Would you wear those colors?
No, I don't. I really like when I do color, I really like bright colors.
So
like
same as me.
Yes.
Like color that makes a statement.
My favorite color of blue is in Greece, like that, the
Cobalt.
ocean. Yes, like that kind of blue is my favorite. Or like you go to like the Amalfi Coast and that Positano blue is like my favorite kind of colors.
Yeah, I love blues.
And I guess traveling allows you to see color in a different way, right? That you maybe wouldn't see in New York.
Well, certainly you don't see a lot of ocean in New York.
No, you don't. You don't see those deep blues. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Where can people find out more information and look up your QVC line?
Well, you can also always go on qvc.com, and then you can Google my name, and then you can see what's been on air, or you can like see the video. And there's also NicoleMiller.com, and there's also our Instagram, which is Nicole Miller NYC.
Amazing. I love talking to you, Nicole.
Well, thanks. This is fun.
Thank you so much.